I came home from the trip and my key didn't fit the lock. My husband Mike said, "The house is gone. Filed for divorce. It's for your own good. Enjoy listening." My key didn't fit the lock. I stood on my own front porch at 1847 Sycamore Bend holding a duffel bag and a gas station coffee, and my key slid into the deadbolt and stopped. Wrong teeth. New lock. I tried it again because that's what you do. You try the thing that isn't working one more time, like the universe might change its mind. Didn't. The phone was in my hand before I thought about it. Mike picked up on the second ring, which told me he'd been waiting for this call. "Elaine," he said. And his voice had that rehearsed steadiness, like he'd practiced this sentence in the bathroom mirror. "The house is gone. Filed for divorce. It's for your own good. For my own good. 7 years of marriage, and that's the line he went with." I smiled, standing right there on the porch with my duffel bag and my cold coffee and a key that didn't work anymore. I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. "Okay, Mike," I said. "Okay." And I hung up. Then I opened my texts and typed 6 words to my lawyer, Athena. They took the bait. "File everything now. I need to take you back 7 months because that smile didn't come from nowhere. That smile had a blueprint behind it. And to understand the blueprint, you need to understand who built the trap, who walked into it, and why I let them think they were winning for as long as I did. My name is Mike, actually. No, his name is Mike. Michael legally. But nobody calls him that except his mother when she's furious, which is often, but that's a different story. My name is Elaine. Elaine Vargas. And 7 months before that porch, I was sitting at my desk at Red Rock Property Group in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, reviewing a lease compliance audit for a strip mall on Kenosha Street that had 3 code violations, and a tenant who'd been running an unlicensed nail salon out of a storage unit. That's what I do. I read leases. I find what doesn't match. I catch the things people hope nobody notices. I'd been doing it for 4 years at Red Rock and I was good at it. Good enough that they were talking about promoting me to team lead, which would bump me from $68,000 to $79,000, finally make the math work on Aunt Rita's situation, which I'll get to. I met Mike at a friend's crawfish boil in April 2017. He was working as a service advisor at Patriot Chevrolet on South Memorial in Tulsa, which sounded more impressive than it was. He mostly argued with warranty companies and upsold tire rotations. We married at the Tulsa County Courthouse 14 months later because neither of us wanted a big wedding and both of us wanted to stop paying 2 rents. Romantic. Well, practical. Absolutely. And for 5 years practical worked. Then it stopped working. And I didn't notice when it stopped because I was busy noticing other things, like the fact that my Aunt Rita's assisted living facility, Magnolia Terrace in Wichita Falls, had just raised their monthly rate by $340. New total, $4,180 a month. Rita raised me after my mother moved to Amarillo when I was 11 and decided motherhood was optional. Rita was 71, had macular degeneration and a hip replacement that didn't take right. And I was the only person in the family who visited, called, or paid attention to the invoices. So when Magnolia Terrace sent that letter, it landed on me. That was September. Same month, I noticed a charge on our home visa. I didn't recognize $129 a month to something called ProEdge Financial Tools. Mike didn't use financial tools. Mike used a calculator app and round numbers. I flagged it in my head and moved on because I had 6 lease audits due by Friday. And a 71-year-old aunt whose rent just jumped. And that same week, Jameson Fulbright stopped by my desk with a coffee, oat milk latte, no sugar, which he'd remembered from a conversation 3 months earlier, and said, "How's Rita doing? Any news on the rate thing?" And I told him because that's what you do when someone remembers your aunt's name and your coffee order and has never once asked you for anything in return. I didn't know then what I know now. But I'm not telling this story for sympathy. I'm telling it so you know what it looks like when the person handing you Band-Aids is the same person holding the knife. Alright, hold on a second. If you've been with me this far, thank you. Mean that. Hit subscribe if you haven't and do me a favor. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one and it genuinely makes my night. Back to this. Jameson Fulbright had been at Red Rock for 6 years. Senior leasing agent 1 level above me. different portfolio, but we shared a floor and a coffee machine that broke every other Thursday. He was 38, divorced 2 years prior, and dealt with it the way some men do by making jokes so good you forgot to feel sorry for him. My ex got the house in ASO, both cars and the dog. He told me once over lunch at the taco place on 71st. She even kept my Netflix password, changed the profile name to loser. I respect the commitment. He made me laugh during a month when laughing felt like lifting furniture, and he did real things. Covered 2 of my lease reports when Aunt Rita had a scare in November. Stayed late to help me reformat a compliance spreadsheet that our system corrupted. Brought me a breakfast sandwich the morning I came in looking like I hadn't slept because I hadn't. Jameson never flirted. Never crossed a line. Never made it weird. He was the kind of friend where you forgot to wonder why he was being nice because the niceness just made sense. Some people are like that, or some people are very, very good at seeming like that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. October, a month after the charge, I was looking for the car insurance card in Mike's glove compartment. His Silverado smelled like old French fries and that Pine air freshener that stopped working in August, and the glove box had a ketchup packet stuck to the owner's manual. And tucked behind that manual I found a Capital One statement. Balance $14. 33841. I didn't know this card existed. 4 years at Red Rock reading financial disclosures for a living, and my own husband had a credit card with $14,000 on it that I'd never seen. I sat in the driveway for 12 minutes. Counted. Then I went inside and asked him. Mike didn't explode. That would have been easier. He got quiet and small, leaned against the kitchen counter, and picked at the label on his water bottle and said, "It's for car parts. Side project. You wouldn't get it. Side project. $14,000 of side project on a credit card with a 26% interest rate. I'm not a mathematician, but I can multiply disappointment by compound interest." I told Jameson the next day. He listened with his elbows on his knees, nodding slow, and then said, "My ex had 3 cards I didn't know about. 3. That's how it starts. 1 card, then a second. Then suddenly, you're staring at $40,000 of someone else's decisions." He didn't tell me what to do. He asked questions. How's the mortgage? Do you know what the house is worth now? Is your name on everything? At the time I thought he was helping me get my bearings. Practical questions from a practical man who'd been through his own mess. I answered all of them. The mortgage was $161,000 left on a house we'd bought for 1914. Current value based on a comp I pulled from Zillow somewhere around 2.87. My name was on the deed. Joint ownership. Jameson said that matters. Trust me. Meanwhile, Aunt Rita's facility needed a new payment arrangement by the end of October. $340 more a month doesn't sound like much until you're sitting at your kitchen table at 10 p.m. with a calculator, a stack of bills, and a husband who apparently has a secret financial life. I did the math on the back of an envelope from the gas company. We had this rule, Mike and I. No financial secrets. We made that promise over a $9 bottle of Yellowtail on our 2nd anniversary. Kept the promise. He kept the wine preference. Mike started coming home later that month. Over time, he said every time. Like the word was a skeleton key that opened every question. I didn't push it. I was too tired to push anything. November, the month everything started leaking. I tried to check our joint checking account online, the one at Arvest Bank that we'd had since 2018. The password didn't work. I tried the backup. Didn't work. I called the branch on Elm Street, and a woman named Tammy with a very patient voice told me that Michael Vargas had revoked my digital access privileges on October 29th. He can do that. I said he's a joint account holder, ma'am. Either party can modify online access settings. I sat at my desk with the phone still against my ear, listening to Tammy breathe, and felt something shift in my chest. Not anger yet, something before anger. The moment your brain accepts that the thing you've been explaining away can't be explained away anymore, told Jameson during our lunch break. We were eating in his car because the break room smelled like someone's leftover fish, and he handed me half his turkey sandwich without me asking and said, "Document everything, dates, amounts, screenshots." That's what my lawyer told me when I was going through mine. Write it all down on paper. You'll need it eventually. Sounded like solid advice, and it was, if you wanted someone to stay busy with a notebook instead of hiring a professional. I didn't see that at the time. Hindsight has 20/20 vision and a mean sense of humor. That same week, Warren Jessup, quiet guy in our office, eats lunch at his desk, never says much, mentioned something while we were both refilling coffee. Hey, I saw Jameson's truck at Patriot Chevy the other Saturday getting work done on that F-150. I said I didn't know. Jameson drives a Ford. Why would he service it at a Chevrolet dealership? I didn't think about it, filed it in the back of my head like a receipt I might need later, and moved on because I was focused on Mike where all the obvious problems were. And Warren's comment was a 2-second blip that didn't register above the noise. For days after I told Jameson about the bank lockout, Mike cornered me in the kitchen. Stop calling the bank, he said, not yelling, controlled, rehearsed. Stop going through my truck. Stop checking up on me. I know what you're doing, Elaine. He listed specifics. The online login attempt, the call to Tammy at Arvest, the glove compartment, things he shouldn't have known in that kind of detail unless someone walked him through item by item. Has someone ever repeated back to you something you never told them? That freeze you get like your blood forgets which direction it's supposed to flow. That was me standing in my kitchen on a Wednesday night. I assumed the bank notified him. Some kind of security alert. That made sense, right? Banks do that. I didn't consider the alternative because the alternative would have meant suspecting the one person who was keeping me from falling apart. You're being paranoid, Mike said. And the word landed exactly where it was supposed to, in the part of my brain that was already exhausted, already questioning itself, already wondering if maybe I was making this into something it wasn't. A week later, my manager at Red Rock, nice woman, been there forever, pulled me aside after a meeting and said, Ella, are you managing okay? Someone mentioned, you've got a lot going on at home. I hadn't told my manager anything. Not one word. I stood there trying to figure out who would have said something and came up blank. I told her I was fine. She gave me that look managers give you when they don't believe you but don't want to push. By late November, my friend Connie from church stopped returning my calls. Just stop. No fight, no explanation. My neighbor Patrice, who used to wave from her mailbox every morning, started timing her trips outside to avoid me. I could see her through the blinds, waiting until my car pulled out before she'd walk her dog. Mike was telling people things. I didn't know exactly what, but I could feel the radius of it. The way a room gets when people know something about you that you didn't tell them. I found out later he'd been saying I was paranoid, controlling, that I'd been going through his phone and his mail and his accounts like a woman losing her grip. And the worst part, some of it was true. I had gone through his glove compartment. I had called the bank. From the outside, I probably did look like a woman coming apart at the seams. I just didn't know yet who gave Mike the script. The Tuesday it really hit me, was December 3rd. And I know the date because it was the same day Magnolia Terrace sent the second notice about Aunt Rita's payment plan. And I remember holding both things in my hands at the same time. A past due invoice for my 71-year-old aunt and the absolute certainty that my marriage was rotting from the inside. That Tuesday morning the alarm went off and my body voted no. First time in 2 years I called in sick, drove to the Walmart on 71st Street and parked in the back corner of the lot near the garden center where nobody parks in winter. Sat there for an hour and a half. Ate a bag of peanut M&Ms from the center console. The kind where half the candy shell has rubbed off against the wrapper and they taste like wax and chocolate and poor life choices. I picked up my phone to call my mother in Amarillo. Put it down. Picked it up. Put it down. My mother is the kind of woman who'd say, "I told you so," before I finished the first sentence. And I didn't have the bandwidth for that conversation and the one I was already having with myself. I need to stop here for a second. This part. Yeah, I'm fine. Me keep going. Jameson texted at 10:14 a.m. You okay? You never miss work. 20 minutes later, his F-150 pulled into the parking spot next to mine, and he got out holding a breakfast sandwich from Quick Trip. Sausage, egg, cheese on a croissant, the one I'd mentioned liking once in passing 4 months earlier. He didn't ask what was wrong. Didn't try to fix it. Just sat in my passenger seat and ate his own sandwich and let me cry into a paper napkin without saying a word for 6 full minutes. Then he said, "You're the sharpest person in that office, Sal. You read contracts that make my eyes cross. You're not crazy. He's the one with the problem, and you'll figure this out. If you've ever had somebody show up for you, not with advice, not with judgment, just with a breakfast sandwich and silence, you know what that does to a person. It makes them trust you with everything. Everything." Went back to work the next day, started digging again. Found something. A $3,200 cash withdrawal from our joint account on November 15th, plus 2 charges at a steakhouse in Yentz called Freddy's Chop House. $87 and $112 a week apart. Mike said he'd never been to Yentz in his life. I showed Jameson. I felt like I had something real this time. He looked at the numbers, pulled out his phone and said, "Hang on. When's Patriots' fiscal quarter end?" "October, right?" He scrolled through something, nodded. "This looks like it could be his quarterly bonus. The Chevy dealerships around here do incentive payouts, sometimes in check, sometimes direct deposit. That timing lines up. And Freddy's, I asked those service advisors take clients out. I've heard Mike talk about it. Dealership picks up the tab on a company card. Guy puts it on his personal card for the points. Submits for reimbursement later. My buddy at the Toyota store does the same thing." Every explanation made sense. Not perfect sense, since that was just close enough that arguing felt like grasping. My evidence dissolved like sugar in hot water. I sat there looking at numbers that meant everything 5 minutes ago and meant nothing now. Then, and this is the part that still makes my skin crawl, Mike changed. He came home that Thursday with flowers. Grocery store carnations, the kind that come in the plastic sleeve with the barcode still on, but still flowers. Put them on the counter and said, "I've been thinking, maybe we should talk to somebody, a counselor. I know things have been rough." This was the man who'd called me paranoid 3 weeks ago, who'd locked me out of our bank account, who'd been vanishing every night. And now he wanted couples therapy. When a man who's been cold for months brings you flowers, that's not love. That's a man who needs you to stand still a little longer. Told Jameson about the flowers. His response, maybe he's waking up. Maybe he realized he's about to lose you. Give it a couple weeks before you do anything drastic. See if it's real. Sounded reasonable. Sounded measured. Sounded exactly like what a good friend would say. It also bought exactly the amount of time they needed. January did something I didn't expect. Gave me room to breathe. Mike kept up the counseling act for about 2 weeks before quietly dropping it. "The therapist doesn't have openings until March," he said one night without looking up from his phone. I didn't push. I'd stopped pushing Mike on anything because pushing Mike had become like pushing a wall. Exhausting and pointless, and the wall doesn't care. But here's what Mike didn't know, what Jameson didn't know, what nobody on this earth knew except me and one woman in a second-floor office on Boston Avenue in downtown Tulsa. Hired a lawyer. Her name was Athena Clusterman. I found her through Aunt Rita's estate attorney in Wichita Falls, a referral chain that had absolutely nothing to do with Red Rock, nothing to do with Broken Arrow, nothing to do with anyone in my daily life. I paid the $275 consultation out of a savings account I'd opened at a different bank entirely. Mid-First, the branch on Sheridan Road, using my maiden name on the correspondence. That's actually when I started keeping copies of anything important. Financial statements, mortgage documents, insurance policies on a separate flash drive that I kept in my locker at work cost me $8 at Office Depot. Best $8 I ever spent. Athena had 14 years in family law. A handshake that could crack a walnut and an office that smelled like old paper and lemon pledge. She listened to everything. The credit card, the bank lockout, the password changes, the isolation, the flowers, and said, "Keep documenting. Don't confront. And don't tell anyone you've retained counsel. Not your mother, not your best friend, no one." I almost told Jameson. I came close on a Wednesday. We were eating lunch in the break room, and he asked how I was holding up, and the words were right there, sitting on the edge of my tongue like a coin on a ledge. I got a lawyer, but something stopped me. Not suspicion, exhaustion. I was tired of narrating my own disaster to people. So I swallowed the words and said, "I'm managing." That tiny silence saved everything, and I didn't even know it yet. February was quiet in the way that January had been, suspiciously uneventful, like the pause between the lightning and the thunder. Mike worked. We occupied the same house the way two strangers share an elevator, aware of each other, careful not to touch. I drove to Wichita Falls on the second weekend of February to handle Aunt Rita's rate situation in person. Sat across from the facility administrator with a folder of financial projections I'd made on a Sunday night, and negotiated a 6-month freeze on the increase. Rita squeezed my hand afterward and said, "You've always been the stubborn one." That's a compliment. I drove home feeling like at least one thing in my life was under control. When I got back, Jameson suggested I should go again. "Take a longer trip next time," he said. 3-4 days. "You looked better after that weekend than you have in months. I'll cover your compliance reports. I've done it before. You deserve a real break, El." Sounded like care. Sounded like the kind of thing a person says when they see you running on fumes and want you to rest. It was a schedule. He needed me out of the house for 3 days. He needed a window. Said yes. Planned a trip for mid-March, 3 days in Wichita Falls. Aunt Rita's paperwork as the cover, which was real because there was always paperwork. Meanwhile, the promotion came back around. My manager called me into her office and said I was the leading candidate for team lead. 79,000 benefits bump corner desk with a window. I walked back to my floor feeling something I hadn't felt since September, like the ground under me was solid. Jameson hugged me when I told him. A real hug, the kind that lasts a second longer than professional, and said, "I'm so happy for you. You deserve every bit of that." And I believed him completely. That Friday we grabbed lunch at the taco place on 71st. He told me about his landlord's cat, a massive orange tabby that kept breaking into his apartment through a window he thought he'd sealed. "I've cocked that window 3 times, 3 times. This cat is smarter than my landlord and definitely smarter than me." I laughed until my eyes watered. He talked about being lonely post-divorce, about how the apartment felt too quiet at night. How he sometimes left the TV on just to hear another voice in the room. And I felt guilty. Guilty for having problems when this man had lost everything in his divorce and was still showing up every day with a joke and a sandwich and a memory for how people take their coffee. You know, looking back, that was the calmest I'd felt in months. And isn't that always when the ground opens up? March 17th, 3 days before the trip, I was at the home desktop in the spare bedroom, printing Aunt Rita's supplemental insurance forms. Mike usually did everything on his phone. Emails, banking, YouTube, all of it thumbed out on a cracked screen he refused to replace. But the desktop was still there. Still logged into his Google account because Gmail and Google Drive share the same login. And Mike hadn't thought to sign out of a computer he hadn't touched in 4 months. I wasn't snooping. I opened Chrome to get to Google Drive where I kept Rita's documents, the browser loaded with 2 tabs already open. One was a YouTube video about brake pad replacement and the other was Mike's Gmail inbox. I almost clicked away. Almost. But the subject line of the second email from the top caught my eye the way a wrong number catches your eye on a spreadsheet. It didn't belong, from Jameson Fulbright. Mike Vargas. Date March 2nd. Subject: Sycamore Property. Timeline. Opened it. Would you have kept reading or closed the laptop and walked away? I'm asking because for about 3 seconds I almost did. The body was 3 sentences. Jameson's voice, casual and direct. The same tone he used when he talked about lease comps over lunch. Attached is the draft purchase agreement from Heartland Home Solutions. Trey's ready to move when you give the green light. She'll be in Wichita Falls the week of the 20th. 3 days is enough. Change the locks Tuesday. Trey files the offer Wednesday. I'll handle the rest from this end. Attached a draft purchase agreement. Buyer Heartland Home Solutions LLC. Contact Trey Scanland. Property 1847 Sycamore Bend, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Offer price $219,000. Our house was worth $287,500 of March 2nd. This email was sent 3 weeks before Mike filed for divorce on March 24th. The divorce wasn't Mike's idea. The timeline wasn't Mike's timeline. The locks, the filing, the trip, all of it was on a schedule. And that schedule was written in Jameson's handwriting. I didn't move for a long time. I don't know how long. The insurance form sat in the print queue and the printer hummed and the house was dark because I hadn't turned on the lights when I sat down and now the sun was gone. Then my brain did what my brain does. It runs numbers. It finds what doesn't match. It reads the fine print. Warren saw Jameson's truck at Patriot Chevy on a Saturday. Jameson drives a Ford. Mike works at Patriot Chevy. There was no car appointment. There was a meeting. Jameson's questions about the mortgage, the house value, my equity, those weren't concern. That was an appraisal. He was pricing my life for a buyer I'd never heard of. I told Jameson about the bank lockout. 48 hours later, Mike knew exactly what I'd tried to do online, right down to the specific login attempt and the call to Tammy at Arvest. Jameson told him. That's how Mike knew the $3,200 withdrawal. Freddie's Chop House. Jameson explained every piece of evidence away calmly, logically, with details that sounded right. He wasn't helping me see clearly. He was protecting the scheme. The timeline wasn't ready yet. Go see Rita. Take 3 days. I'll cover your reports. He wasn't giving me a break. He was clearing the house. The promotion. My manager asking if I was doing okay at home. Jameson told her not to protect me, to slow me down. A woman distracted by personal chaos doesn't ask for a raise. A woman who gets promoted to $79,000 has more resources, more stability, more options. He needed me stretched thin. Trey Scanlon, Heartland Home Solutions LLC. Jameson's half-brother. I'm going to be honest right now. Mike was a disappointment. I can say that without flinching. But Jameson was 14 months of oat milk lattes. And you'll figure this out. 14 months of covering my reports and sitting in a parking lot while I cried into a napkin. 14 months of being the one person I didn't have to explain myself to. That's the one that still makes my jaw tight when I talk about it. I took 4 screenshots, forwarded the email chain to my personal account, the mid-first one, the one Jameson didn't know existed, cleared the sent folder, logged Mike out of Gmail, closed the laptop, turned off the monitor. Then I sat in my dark kitchen for 40 minutes. Not crying, not shaking. I reorganized the junk drawer twice, lined up every battery, every takeout menu, every pen cap. When I ran out of things to organize, I stopped and my hands were steady. And right there at 11 at night in my own house I stopped being hurt. Got quiet. The kind of quiet that should have scared somebody. I called Athena at 8:01 the next morning. Her office opened at 8 o'clock. I was the first call. Drove to Boston Avenue on my lunch break with my phone in my hand and showed her every screenshot. The email, the purchase agreement, the timeline, Trey Scanlon's name. Heartland Home Solutions LLC. She read it once, read it again, put the phone down on her desk, and looked at me over her glasses and said, "This is premeditated. This is collusion to depress a property value. And the best part, his divorce filing actually works against him. Now we can use every piece of this." Here's what Athena explained, and here's why I went on that trip anyway. In Oklahoma, if you change the locks on a property that's co-owned, that's an illegal lockout. Doesn't matter if you filed for divorce. Doesn't matter if you think you're clever. It's a violation that gives the other party grounds for an emergency motion. Immediate relief, court-ordered access. And a judge who is now very interested in why you thought locking out your co-owner was a reasonable idea. The email proved the scheme was arranged before the divorce was filed. That's not a man who woke up one day and decided to leave his wife. That's a coordinated plan to force a below-market sale to a buyer connected to a third party who was manipulating both sides. A judge would see that. A real estate commission investigator would see that. An HR compliance officer at Red Rock would see that. You go on the trip. Athena said. Let him do exactly what he's planning to do. The moment he changes those locks, I file emergency motion for illegal lockout. List pendants on the property. That's a legal claim that prevents any sale until the court resolves it. And a separate complaint to the Oklahoma Real Estate Commission regarding Heartland Home Solutions, LLC. No courtroom speech, no dramatic confrontation. Paperwork filed electronically. The most devastating weapon in family law is a well-timed PDF. I went to work that afternoon, walked past Jameson's desk. He was on the phone laughing about something with a client. I stopped, waited for him to hang up, and set an iced coffee on his desk. "Oh, milk, no sugar." "What's this for?" he said. "Just felt like it." He smiled, took a sip, didn't suspect a thing. Why would he? I'd been his project for 14 months. The distressed friend. The woman too overwhelmed to see straight. He'd built that version of me carefully, piece by piece, and he believed in his own construction. Was it mature? Buying that coffee with a smile while I knew his entire world was about to come apart. Well, did it feel like the best $3 oat milk latte I've ever purchased? Absolutely. Told him I was excited about the trip. He squeezed my shoulder. "You deserve the break, Elle. Don't worry about reports. I've got it." I drove 4.5 hours to Wichita Falls with the calmest road rage of my life. Didn't even honk at the guy in the Dodge Ram who cut me off on I-44. I was saving my energy for more important things. Day 1, visited Rita, brought her the butter pecan ice cream she likes from Brahms, sat with her for 3 hours, and watched Wheel of Fortune and didn't think about Sycamore Bend once. That's a lie. I thought about it the entire time, but I held Rita's hand and I let her win at guessing the puzzles. And I kept my phone face up on the armrest because I was waiting. Day 2, 2:47 p.m. text from my neighbor Patrice. The same Patrice who'd been avoiding me for weeks. "Hey, just thought you should know. There's a locksmith at your house right now. Didn't know if you knew." He knew. Texted Athena. "It's happening." He changed the locks. Athena. Filing now. Day 3. Drove home. Pulled into the driveway at 1847 Sycamore Bend. Walked up the porch steps. Put my key in the lock. It didn't fit. Called Mike. He answered on the second ring with that rehearsed voice. That bathroom mirror sentence. "The house is gone. Filed for divorce. It's for your own good." Smiled. Right there on the porch. Same duffel bag. Same cold coffee. "Okay, Mike." I said. "Okay," hung up. Opened my text. They took the bait. File everything now. Now you understand why I was smiling at that door. I wasn't locked out. I was watching 2 people lock themselves inside a cage they built with their own hands. Athena filed everything by 6 o'clock that evening. Emergency motion. List pendants on the house. Fraud complaint naming Heartland Home Solutions, LLC. Trey Scanlon and the below-market purchase agreement dated 3 weeks before the divorce petition. Mike got served at Patriot Chevrolet the next morning. A process server handed him an envelope and walked out. Took 9 seconds. He called me 4 times that afternoon. Angry, then confused, then quiet, then begging. I didn't answer any of them. Jameson got 1 text from me. No words, just the screenshot of his own email. He called 9 times. I sent the chain to Red Rock's compliance department with a 1-page summary. HR opened an investigation. Took 3 weeks. I got the promotion in April. Team lead $79,000. Corner desk by the window. Monday morning, first week in the new role. I sat at my desk with a coffee. Oat milk, no sugar. Across the floor, Jameson's desk was empty, clean. His coffee mug with the chipped handle was gone. Nobody mentioned his name. The chair was already in storage. If you think this one got under your skin, the next story waiting on your screen might be the one that keeps you up tonight. Click it. Dare you.